We are here in Valdocco with the first of 5 videos that will tell us something of the human and spiritual story of St. Francis de Sales. We will not draw strictly on biography in these 5 videos, nor will it be a treatise based on his writings. We will not even be talking about St. Francis de Sales' historical and cultural context. There will be other explorations of these matters. Our approach will rather be from the pastoral aspect. And so we begin with this first video, where we will be saying something about the story of human being in the light of God. During the Great Renaissance period, a cultural movement developed known as humanism for its rediscovery of the Greek and Latin classics. Obviously, this is irrespective of the religious aspect. But Francis de Sales was part of this European-wide movement and pointed to a religious aspect focused on God, a devout reading of the human being, devout humanism. At the end of the first part of the introduction to the devout life, Francis de Sales concludes his initial exploration on the pedagogy of spiritual life with a grand promise. And this grand promise picks up on the themes of baptism. Indeed, it is called the baptismal promise. Let us listen to some parts of it.
And turning to a loving and pitiful God, I desire, intend, and deliberately resolve to serve and love Him now and eternally, devoting my mind and all its faculties, my soul and all its powers, my heart and all its affections, my body and all its senses, to His will. O God, Thou art my God, the God of my heart, my soul and spirit, and as such, I acknowledge and adore Thee now and for all eternity.
Francis de Sales embarks on a grand vision of total dedication where God is concerned. He would call this devotion an attitude of complete trust in God, and because of this surrender, he is proposing a healthy and concrete Christian realism that is very beneficial even today. This concrete realism is drawn first and foremost from nature. Where he was born at Thoronglie, nature was mountainous, rugged, and gentle. His family added another very interesting element for discovering God in his life. His mother and father were fundamental to this, especially his mother. Then there was a third element. During his 10 years of study in Paris, thanks to one of his teachers, Francis discovered that he was drawn to love one of the biblical books, the Song of Songs. Through this book, he discovers a relationship with God that is enveloping, friendly, and fascinating. He would grow in this relationship and invite others to do so. For him, this revelation was balsam for his personal problems and for the problems society of his day was going through. Conflict, divisions, clashes at both civil and religious levels, severe epidemics sweeping through the France and Europe of his time. Nature offered the young Francis the tools for grasping God's grammar, and the Bible would then decode this grammar for him.
e poi la Bibbia decodificherà questa grammatica.
There are so many texts in which Francis draws analogies from human life and nature in the simplest and also the most elevated forms. Let us listen to one of them.
Throw precious stones into honey, and each will grow more brilliant according to its several color. And in like manner, everybody fulfills his special calling better when subject to the influence of devotion.
Ancora, dalla Filotea, questa volta però nella terza parte, quella sulle virtù, ascoltiamo un altro piccolo brano.
Moreover, when there is nothing to stir your wrath, lay up a store of meekness and kindliness, speaking and acting in things great and small as gently as possible. Remember that the bride of the Canticles is described as not merely dropping honey, and milk also from her lips, but as having it under her tongue, that is to say, in her heart. So we must not only speak gently to our neighbor, but we must be filled, heart and soul, with gentleness. And we must not merely seek the sweetness of aromatic honey in courtesy and suavity with strangers, but also the sweetness of milk among those of our own household and our neighbors. A sweetness terribly lacking to some who are as angels abroad and devils at home.
Little by little, Francis opens up to a vision of God who is a friend to the human being. He feels he can be relied upon, and in this trustworthiness, he develops an original path of spiritual life. It is not all so simple. For him too, there were difficult stages in discovering this God as a friend, someone trustworthy for a promising humanity. When he was 19 or 20 years old in Paris, during his studies, he went through some months of terrible crisis connected with the sequence of events and theological problems of his day. He saw his youthful years in times of turbulence in the light of the predestination, or in other words, that he was fundamentally predestined to eternal damnation. And it was not the fear of eternal suffering, but his greatest suffering would be being alienated from the God who he felt was a loving God, a friend, a God who was love. This was more of a mystical crisis than a crisis of faith. Stricken by this crisis, Francis was wasting away and would only come out of it thanks to the intercession of Mary, surrendering himself completely to God's benevolence. And here would begin an even deeper discovery of a love that envelops our whole humanity. A stage would now develop that would set the standard. God wants us all to be saved. But not just that, God wants us all to be holy. And this is the path that Francis de Sales would call devotion. A journey of life lived intensely according to the gospel. According to the gospel, our life, Christian holiness, leads us to be really alive, vital, and life-giving. Holiness, or the devout life, according to Francis de Sales, is proposed for consecrated individuals, for lay people, for every state in life, as a journey of perfection in charity. Let us listen to some of the best known, but also the most evocative and beneficial passages on this.
A different exercise of devotion is required of each: the noble, the artisan, the servant, the prince, the maiden, and the wife. And furthermore, such practice must be modified according to the strengths, the calling, and the duties of each individual. The devotion which is true hinders nothing, but on the contrary, it perfects everything. And that which runs counter to the rightful vocation of anyone is, you may be sure, spurious devotion.
Let us listen directly to some words from him with which he proposes devotion to all those who wish to follow his path.
In the world, those who aim at a devout life require to be united one with another by a holy friendship, which excites, stimulates, and encourages them in well-doing.
We could almost say that spiritual friendship is like a group of friends who are tied together and help each other climb a mountain and reach the summit together.
Spiritual friendship is an exchange, a communication, a mutual help. We walk through this life like two people climbing a mountain together. One pulls the other along, supports the other in their efforts, and opens the way for them, but without the leader renouncing the authority of their role in essential matters.
With this compelling and consoling text, we have concluded the first video episode. Goodbye until the second episode, which will be entitled Gentleness with Oneself and with Others.